Welcome to the False Claims Act Insider, presented by Price Benowitz. With more than 15 years of experience as an attorney focusing on qui tam law, Tony Munter explores the risks and heroism involved in being a whistleblower alongside distinguished attorneys.
John, I appreciate it. I was going over your resume and I knew you had an environmental background. I must say I didn't know you had 20 years as 25 years-ish running nonprofits in environment. How did you go from that to dealing with whistleblowers? What got you into our insane part of the world? Which I will tell you, I got into it by accident, but
yeah. Well, for me, I've always been interested in any job that helps me further the cause of justice and fairness. And so I've always looked at my environmental work, which I started way back in the early 90s, including doing volunteer work. I was a pro bono attorney for a number of environmental groups when I was in private law practice, as really addressing injustice, environmental injustices, which hurt people as well as the planet. And so in my previous job leading the Wind Solar Alliance, it was really promoting a solution to the climate crisis. Renewable energy is getting cheaper and more available around the world. Certainly can now outcompete the very harmful fossil fuels. But that job was actually a perfect prelude to this one. There, when I was really promoting the solution. But the problem is one of the big challenges implementing solutions to climate change are the same challenges that block us from implementing most of the solutions to our social problems, and that's corruption. And so to me, to be able to marry my passion for fighting climate change and helping people in the environment with a very effective tool that, in my view, is being underutilized. Whistleblowers are incredibly powerful from a moral perspective, but they also have some legal tools. By the way, when I alluded to tools, I was referring to the legal tools and not people. So we have people, courageous people, that need help working through the various processes, and we could help them achieve justice, we can protect them from retaliation, and we can address some of the biggest issues of the day. So to me, wow, what a great opportunity.
Yeah. Well, not surprisingly, when you joined the Whistleblower Center, I noticed, we now have 4 or 5 environmentally based programs, I guess you'd say, to work on cases related, and I'm just trying to pull them up. But have you had much interest in those programs? How is that going?
Yeah, quite a lot of interest. Everyone I talk to instantly agrees when I say one of the biggest obstacles to solving our big environmental problems is corruption. Democracy is threatened all around the world. You really can't achieve any significant social reforms without laws. Laws only function in a democracy. And so everybody agrees with the statement of the problem. And when I'm able to come to them and say, actually, we have something that can deliver a tangible solution in a reasonable amount of time, that gets people's eyes and ears lit up and said, wow, tell me more. And then I tell about the sort of world-changing impacts of whistleblower cases. And some have truly transformed entire industries because of how we, and particularly in the United States, have empowered whistleblowers to come forward with evidence of wrongdoing and have worked with prosecutors and regulators to actually do something about it. All the problems we work on are global. Actually, when I say U.S. laws, it's because those are the ones that have gone first. As far as I'm concerned, this is a wave that will happen all across the planet. And we are very interested in working with whistleblowers around the world, working with policy makers around the world to make this system work.
Which laws are you taking advantage? Which whistleblower laws, I guess, would you see taking advantage of the False Claims Act, the SEC? I know there's a couple of new laws that anti-dumping laws, that kind of thing. Which laws have been most effective, or potentially most effective, I should say, in this area? Because it is fairly new.
Yeah, and those are two very different questions. So only a handful that have proven effectiveness, and a whole bunch that have enormous potential. Okay. And so proven effective, False Claims Act. I'm glad you brought that up. Yes. And we think it's underutilized. The most common use of the False Claims Act is government procurements, which, let's face it, the government's not going to stop spending money anytime soon. And the opportunities for fraud and abuse of those taxpayer dollars is as great now as ever. And so we think there's going to be increased interest in the Justice Department and working with whistleblowers to fight back and to protect that money. There's also another side of the False Claims Act which has had limited effectiveness up till now, we think has enormous growth potential, and that's so-called reverse false claims. The numerous permits and licenses and beyond that the government is issuing. We're very interested in customs fraud, for example. And we work on the industrial logging, illegal logging industry. And same thing with illegal fishing, illegal wildlife trafficking. All of these global industries are dominated by criminals that have to get through ports. And we are not fully utilizing the tools that are at hand. The False Claims Act, Lacey Act, a whole bunch of other laws like that could be used more effectively to intercept all this illegal trade in the ports. We're very interested in that. So that's the False Claims Act to start. We're also very interested in sticking on the theme of proven successes. The other biggie is Dodd-Frank Act. We're interested in both the securities side and the commodities side of the Dodd-Frank Act. The numbers are impressive in terms of the monetary sanctions that the SEC has been able to deliver thanks to whistleblowers, and the rewards going back to whistleblowers, which sends the right signal out to the potential whistleblowers in corporate America and beyond. So those are the two biggest, as far as we're concerned, in terms of opportunities to basically go around the world and say, we have a success model, it's working, let's replicate this. And to reach out to potential whistleblowers and say, you don't have to destroy your life. You can get these cases filed confidentially and get the government to take over the case. And that's something I think that most people are not aware of. And we really think it's our job to spread the word and help people know that all the incredible traumas that whistleblowers have experienced throughout history, we may have created a new model to make it possible to achieve justice without destroying your life and putting your life and your family's livelihood at risk.
So under either the SEC or the Dodd-Frank and the False Claims Act, one does not need to be a U.S. citizen to file a case. So when you say going global, are you talking about whistleblowers who might be in another country and see this going on and filing under those laws? Or are you also advocating for, I assume, in some circumstances, laws in countries that don't have whistleblower laws?
Yes, both. So we already are assisting whistleblowers from outside the U.S. that are taking advantage of U.S. laws. We want to do a lot more of that. And so we go around the world with our networks and with our advertising and our hopefully our reputation preceding us, and we spread the good word that U.S. laws are available to you, regardless of U.S. citizenship, regardless of where the company may be based. Let's face it, most multinational companies have some footprint in the United States, whether it's selling stocks or banking or beyond, and so the jurisdictional nexus is generally not that difficult if you're going after large companies committing frauds. So our message is these U.S. laws are designed to address transnational crime and corruption. And so that's item number one on our agenda. But the other part of our agenda is to look around the world and say, where are the big opportunities to strengthen whistleblower laws and to take the lessons from the United States successes and adapt them to the needs of other countries. We're very interested in Europe right now. In fact, we've opened up a European office jointly with Whistleblowing International. We now have, the European Center for Whistleblower Rights off and running. And one of the key motivations for opening in Europe is to enact whistleblower laws, following up on the 2019 EU directive, which essentially tells all the EU member nations that they have until December of 2021 to pass a whistleblower law. We want to make sure they get that right, and don't just pass a whistleblower law, pass effective whistleblower laws. There have been a lot of bad whistleblower laws passed around the world, ones that leave whistleblowers at greater risk than when they started the process. And we actually, part of feeling as our ethical obligation is steer people away from these bad laws and to help create a safer path. And so that's one of our big focuses, is going into Europe, spreading the word about what has worked and what has not in the United States. There are great studies that show that these reward laws like the False Claims Act and Dodd-Frank Act and beyond are effective. There's also a bunch of studies that show that some of the other laws, such as the UK's Public Interest Disclosure Act, which unfortunately has served as a model around the world, has failed. Whistleblowers who use the law end up getting retaliated against, and they end up paying all kinds of legal bills that they didn't expect to pay. It's a nightmare. And so we have a lot of work left to do to strengthen whistleblower laws around the world, and that's one of the things we're focused on.
Oh, I had no idea that you were breaking into Europe. There hasn't been much whistleblower law in Europe compared to the U.S.
Yeah.
There isn't much in Canada that I'm aware of either. Actually, there's only a Ontario Securities and Exchange Commission, I think, and that's about it. I guess we should say we're fortunate. I mean, we do have at least the basis of. If we complain a lot about it, but we have the basis of some pretty good whistleblower laws.
We do. I mean, let's face it. There also are a whole bunch of horror stories in our own country. The federal whistleblowing system is not working. It's really unfortunate if you're a federal employee that if you get retaliated against, you're stuck in this bureaucratic nightmare of the Merit Systems Protection Board. The other main whistleblower law for workers sitting over at OSHA has not worked well. Massive backlog of cases. So we have a lot of work left to do in the United States. But we do have some success models that we think we should build on.
Give us an idea of the scope of the number of folks that go through your website. And I mean, I don't think people appreciate the degree to which, I mean, I have some familiarity with this, but the National Whistleblower Center tends to process information from a lot of whistleblowers, and I don't know that service is well understood as being as extensive as it is.
Yeah, and I'm not prepared today to roll out all the numbers for you, but I will say that we consider ourselves to be the top whistleblower website, and we work really hard to be a respected source of information for whistleblowers. In fact, we welcome input and suggestions from people on issues they feel like we are missing, because every day we're adding new content. So we design our website so that when you type in search terms relating to whistleblowing, we are there for you. And we do that because we want whistleblowers to get good information. We also want policymakers to get good information. We aim our messages at more than just whistleblowers. We're trying to influence policy as well. And also, as I think we have a legal intake section that enables people to get connected to qualified whistleblower counsel. So we're not a law firm ourselves, but we're very interested in ensuring that whistleblowers get effective representation. And so we have built a system that handles a significant number of whistleblower complaints. And it's completely secure. It's all attorney-client privileged conversations with attorneys who do the consultations. So, we can always get better on that, as all aspects of our websites. But it is an important public service that we feel like we provide.
Okay. And in addition, we obviously have a new administration, a new Congress. Is there any particular initiative that you're looking to try and get done, if you could, or push for, I should say, advocate for? Because some whistleblower organizations are not set up to advocate, but rather to service attorneys. I know the NWC is a little bit more activist in that respect, and I'm sure it's what you're looking to do. Or push for, I should say. Yeah,
I mean, we have on the congressional side an agenda that really spans most of the major whistleblower laws. Each could use fine tuning. Dodd-Frank, the digital realty. I'm not going to get into the wonky parts of our laws.
All right.
Each of our major whistleblower laws has updates and strengthening amendments needed. We work with members of Congress to get that done. So Dodd-Frank, we have goals for improving the IRS whistleblower program. We have goals for improving False Claims Act and beyond. In addition to the main whistleblower statutes that you all probably have heard of, there are new ones that are coming on that need a lot of attention. The money laundering whistleblower law that just got passed by Congress, we think needs work. There's no minimum reward, which I think is pretty fundamental to the success of the Dodd-Frank Act. And there's other changes needed to that as well. We are very interested in fixing bank whistleblowing. The FIRA, F-I-R-R-E-A, whistleblower law is problematic in the way it's written, has not been nearly as effective as it could have been. And so we would love to get improvements going on that. And we have a very specific recommendations, I should say, on that. Let me talk about climate change. As you know, it's getting a lot of attention. It's getting a lot of attention from policymakers right now, including the incoming administration. We think there's a lot that can be done in the executive branch to improve climate change whistleblowing. And so we have an agenda to work with the SEC, to work with the Federal Reserve, Office of Control of the Currency, and beyond to get them to stand up whistleblowing programs that are aimed at the most likely frauds that are slowing up progress on climate change. And let me explain. We put out a report in July of last year called Exposing a Ticking Time Bomb. And it essentially says that the fossil fuel industry has all the indicators of high likelihood of fraud. Their profits are seriously at risk. They have a history of deception. There's very loose standards on how they report their finances. And so there's been a lot of shortcuts taken. So this is an opportunity. And the reason why this matters so much, one, is if these folks are staying in business only through fraud, that's not right. But the other thing is because of all the so-called stranded assets and many hidden liabilities at these companies, it creates an enormous risk to the financial system as a whole, to our economy as a whole. And that's what we meant by exposing a ticking time bomb. If whistleblowers were to step forward and help expose all of these frauds that are underway, we have specific examples of ones that have been proven, that actually takes the risk away from the financial system. So financial regulators have an interest in caring about this issue, and they have stepped up. And you're now hearing all the leaders of the major, from Janet Yellen on, talking about the need to address systemic risk from climate change. So we're very interested and focused on that issue. We love working with whistleblowers from the fossil fuel sector to help address that problem. We have some we're already working with. As well in other areas that are threatening our planet that relate to climate change. We're very interested in the illegal timber trade, which industrial logging and deforestation is a big threat to our climate, as well as the biodiversity and other environmental issues. So we've got a big policy agenda, both at the administration side and on the congressional side.
Are you looking to file cases in this respect, SEC cases showing a risk to investors? Is that the theory that you would pursue? It's the reverse false claim theory is tricky, except that almost all these companies are already under some sort of corporate integrity agreement that can be used. Right. And the other thing that came to mind is CAFE standards. I'm sure you know about that. That's a little different than a fine because it's money that goes in the pocket of an organization. Are those the kind of basis of cases you're looking at? Or are you advocating for other whistleblower laws? But I mean, that's what came to mind with respect to existing laws.
We already are assisting whistleblowers who have Dodd-Frank cases exposing accounting fraud by fossil fuel companies, basically overstating their financial condition in order to attract investors and lenders. There's a lot of
royalties. Now that I think about it, royalties on public land, right?
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, there's a lot of untapped areas. Unpaid royalties or fraud in connection with securing a lease, of course, was the basis for the Deepwater Horizon disaster. And the Department of Justice pled a False Claims Act claim in that case. It was part of the settlement with BP, was paying a False Claims Act fine. So, but has been largely a tool that's been sitting on the shelf unused. So before, when I was alluding to the Reverse False Claims Act being an area that we want to develop further, that's just one example of many where major companies are interacting with the government, lying in connection with the reporting and forms they're filling out. And that's, how they're doing business. And so nobody should be supporting any industry that's managing to stay in business by lying to their investors and the government and everyone else. And so this is a big area of opportunity for us to address all of this fraud. I also want to say on the subject of climate change that significant climate legislation is going to be introduced in the next Congress that actually has a meaningful chance of getting passed, unlike in the past. If that legislation imposes a duty on fossil fuel companies, other regulated entities to complete some kind of report to the government, which typically these laws do.
Mhm.
The question is the government going to rely upon whistleblowers to disclose fraudulent reporting? Our answer to that question is absolutely yes. Any successful enforcement requires the inside information that whistleblowers provide. So that's another policy opportunity to really make sure the next generation of climate legislation thinks seriously about what is effective enforcement. It has been a failing. I've worked on past climate legislation. It has been a failing of past climate bills to not give adequate attention to the enforcement question, and we want to be in the middle of that conversation.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, this administration is taking a very different view towards climate than the past one. It's kind of interesting. The guy who was in charge for the DOJ with respect to environmental enforcement was actually just outed as the guy who tried to overthrow the government. So I'm not sure that he was all that excited about enforcing environmental laws. But
well, enforcement in general, by the way, I've had to do this with all my friends talking about climate change. This is more than an environmental issue. This is far more than an environmental issue. It's an existential issue. It's a question of the sustainability of our entire economy. So the environment is one piece of it. But the whole financial system is at stake. National security is at stake. And so we're trying to make sure it gets out of that little environmental box, though obviously I care a lot about the environment. But in every sphere, there are climate implications. And that was really interesting to see the Biden administration, when they rolled out their executive orders yesterday, to start using this terminology, whole of government approach. There's no agency in the federal government now that can push aside the issue of climate change. It's going to be part of every agency's agenda.
Well, it's a big deal, and it's funny because it hits in areas you wouldn't think. I mean, I've for various weird reasons, I've been aware of the U.S. Navy oddly being at the forefront of actually doing good stuff about climate change, which you wouldn't necessarily expect. Yesterday's executive orders talked about, replacing the entire fleet of U.S. vehicles. If the federal government actually gets behind this, it will touch all sectors of the economy. Yeah. And I'd be grateful if the National Whistleblower Center has some success in making a role for whistleblowers in that and enforcement. Yeah, get enforced. I mean, I think you're right.
Yeah, and actually, I have to say, I've had the great pleasure of talking with and working with a lot of whistleblowers. You know this, but I just want to say, for the benefit of your audiences, they all care about the issue. They actually are often very self-sacrificing people. You almost need to steer them away from sacrificing themselves. Yeah. They're passionate about achieving justice and exposing, criminality and fraud. And so, yes, I mean, if you're trying to launch a new government program and you're looking around for help, these are the people you want on your team.
They really are. They really are. Well, John, this has been really, really terrific. What a substantive review. Is there anything in particular you want to provide as an advertisement for the National Whistleblower Center, as long as I have you? People can go to the website. I happen to be wearing my T-shirt underneath that says whistleblowers.org in honor of this today. Is there anything in particular you want to say about the National Whistleblower Center and what you've learned over the 2 years of working with them that makes you happy to be there, I guess is the thing.
Yeah, I should say I am thrilled to be leading the National Whistleblower Center, and thank you for the plug for whistleblowers.org. We welcome people to come and work with us. We have an activist network, so join our email list so you can help push forward some of these policies. If you are a potential whistleblower, come look at our educational materials and let's get smart about this issue and proceed very carefully before you blow the whistle, and we can connect you to an attorney. This is what we do. We live to help whistleblowers, and we also help whistleblowers achieve justice. And it's possible. Today, unlike, say, 30 years ago, if you're a whistleblower, you're almost guaranteed to have to sacrifice your life. And it's really tragic. I don't think we should accept that anymore. I think whistleblowers should be able to achieve justice and continue to live productive lives. And that's our goal. And we think it's actually very achievable. So come join with us. We have all different kinds of ways of getting involved. Come to our website, and we'd love to get you involved.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure.
Okay, thank you. All right. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the False Claims Act Insider. Be sure to check back next week for more insights into the world of whistleblower and qui tam law with your host, Tony Munter. All episodes can be streamed on pricebenowitz.com along with your favorite streaming platforms.